They told him to kneel before stepping into the arena. He didn't. Instead, he picked his nose, wiped it on the security droid, and asked where the food court was. 5 minutes later, there were limbs on the ceiling, blood misting the dome like perfume, and not a single combatant left breathing. Somewhere in the middle of that carnage, the audience stopped cheering and started praying. Earth's gift had arrived, and it wasn't a gladiator. It was extinction in a leather jacket. The splatter dome was built for spectacle. 30 stories high, encased in transparent diamond steel, surrounded by 9 billion screeching alien spectators from all sectors of the galaxy. It pulsed with music, death chants, and advertisements for tentacle polish and anti-mind control shampoo. It was the heart of the Galactic Lord's entertainment empire, a place where prisoners and warriors came to die in creative, slow-motion agony. Everyone watched. Everyone bet. And today the odds were 340 to 1. In the loading bay under the arena, a hunched figure sipped something out of a rusted metal mug and grunted as a guard droned out protocol. No weapons. No armor. No questions. The figure scratched at his jawline with a claw, adjusted his pants like they were 2 sizes too small, and yawned like this was all part of his Sunday. Name, the guard asked. Wolvie, the man said. That's not on the list, the guard replied. Yeah, well, neither was your mom, Wolvie answered and stepped past him. He emerged into the blinding light of the arena floor just as the announcer, a levitating octopoid in a top hat, finished hyping up the audience with a scream that ruptured a few ear canals in the front row. 30 warriors stood in a circle, a perfect spectrum of death. A sand crystal golem from Grixel, 3 plasma sword assassins from the Nebula Guild, a 9-eyed shadow beast whose species name was legally unpronounceable, and others with teeth in places teeth were never meant to be. All of them turned to face Earth's contribution. Wolvie stretched, cracked his neck, and made finger guns at them. No one laughed. Except him. The countdown started. 10 seconds. The audience roared. Cameras zoomed in. Announcers spat commentary. Somewhere on a moon far away, betting machines blinked. The buzzer sounded. 2 seconds later, the first head flew off. By the end of the first minute, 7 were dead. Not just dead, shattered, sliced, evaporated, folded in half. The golem tried to smash him, but Wolvie used the momentum to hurl himself onto its back, punched through its spine, and used its crystal shards to blind 2 assassins mid-dash. One slipped and impaled himself on the arena's decoratively unnecessary spike wall. The shadow beast tried to engulf him. It shrieked as he bit it. Actually bit it. When it reformed, it was missing a chunk of itself and whimpered in what sounded like genuine trauma. It teleported out of the arena mid-battle, which had never happened before in the history of the games. 3 minutes in, the crowd fell silent. There was something wrong with him. He wasn't just brutal. He was surgical, strategic. He ducked when no one else would've. He rolled into openings that hadn't been made yet. And he smiled the whole time. Not a predator's grin. No, this was different. It was the grin of a man who knew exactly what he was doing and was deeply, disturbingly entertained by it. By 4 minutes and 38 seconds, it was over. 29 bodies lay strewn like confetti. The 30th was too scared to fight, curled in a fetal position by the north gate. Wolvie walked over, squatted next to him, and whispered something into his ear. The warrior passed out immediately. The crowd later demanded to know what was said. The security footage showed only 3 words: nice toenail polish. The audience didn't know how to react. They were used to death. Glorious, operatic death. Not this. Not massacre mixed with sarcasm. A joke wrapped in terror. The lords themselves, seated in their floating obsidian thrones above the arena, leaned forward. One of them, a lord whose body was entirely made of shifting data cubes, narrowed its eyes and said aloud, "That is not the one we authorized." Another lord responded, scanning records. Earth's fighter was supposed to be a standard brawler. Not this. Not him. Back in the arena, Wolvie stood alone, arms wide, grinning. "Is there an after-party, Or do I just murder the snack vendors next? They didn't clap. Not yet. It wasn't fear. It was confusion. And behind that, something deeper. Something ancient. Recognition. One of the elders whispered, "I've seen him before." Wolvie looked directly up at the VIP section and winked. Then he walked toward the gate like he was late for brunch. Security bots entered to escort him back to holding. 2 malfunctioned on proximity. 1 just exploded. The last one begged for a different assignment. Wolvie paused, touched the bot's shoulder like a priest might bless a child, and said, "Don't worry, pal. You've got a good energy." The arena's medtechs refused to retrieve the bodies. Backstage, a Galactic news drone hovered near Wolvie, asking questions in 12 languages. Wolvie turned, grabbed the drone, stared into its camera, and said in a calm, gentle voice, "Hi, Mom. If you're watching, tell Earth. Nice try." The feed cut out immediately. Every control room in the Lord's Tower lit up with red alert. Analysts tried to trace the message. They found encrypted Earth code buried under layers of disinformation. The message had one embedded directive. Containment failed. In the deepest vaults beneath the arena, hidden under miles of reinforced neutron plating, a project file was accessed for the first time in 70 years. Codename, Wolvie. Status, terminated. But he wasn't terminated. He was standing in their spotlight. And he had just started to warm up. Ask ChatGPT. The cell wasn't much. A metal box with 0 privacy, a bed that felt like it had been punched into shape by an angry rhino, and a single blinking surveillance orb that never stopped watching. Wolvie sat on the floor, back against the wall, munching on what the Galactic Lords called food. It resembled a sponge, smelled like motor oil, and had the texture of someone's regrets. He chewed thoughtfully, staring straight at the orb with the expression of a man wondering if it was edible too. Every so often, he tossed a bite of sponge into the air and caught it with his mouth, making exaggerated noises like he was reviewing fine cuisine. At one point, he looked directly into the orb and whispered, "This is why aliens hate Earth. Because of food like this." Outside the cell, the arena's analysts were losing their minds. Galactic Systems had reviewed every combatant's file in the last 2 centuries, and none matched this man's patterns. His biology was Earth-based, but enhanced in ways they couldn't categorize. Muscle density far beyond human maximums. Healing factor that outpaced even synthetic construct. Psychological profiling flagged him as unstable, then retracted that result when it detected sarcasm the algorithms couldn't interpret. Worse, the combat footage showed impossible moves. He predicted attacks before they happened, dodged at angles that shouldn't work under gravity, and hit with force disproportionate to his form. It was like watching physics quit its job. But what terrified the Lords wasn't his strength. It was his humor. No creature that deadly should be that entertained. During the massacre, he had quipped about fashion choices, mimicked a gladiator's battle scream mid-fight, and at one point asked if this was being filmed in IMAX. The more blood spilled, the more playful he became. It made no sense. Assassins were cold. Berserkers were wild. This man was something else. Something broken and aware. Hours later, the Lords sent a diplomat drone into the cell to initiate conversation. It hovered into place, projecting a formal greeting in 6 dialects and offering him a choice of 3 preferred combat opponents for the next round. Wolvie looked up, blinked, and asked, "Can I pick someone from the audience?" The drone stuttered. Protocol did not allow it. "Then why ask?" he replied. He stood, stretched, and walked right up to the orb. Before the drone could retreat, he gently tapped it. "You want to know what I am? You're asking the wrong question." The drone blinked in confusion. Wolvie leaned closer. "You should be asking who built me, and why they sent me here." In the command chamber above the arena, alarms triggered. The drone's memory was scanned. That last sentence had activated multiple defense protocols. Certain phrases, coded, buried deep in old Earth war files, were never supposed to be heard again. Yet he had spoken one. The lords now understood they weren't just hosting a gladiator. They were hosting a weapon. Word spread fast. Across the outer rings, pirates, syndicate warlords, mercenaries, and black market archivists all watched the footage and speculated. Some believed he was an Earth god. Others thought he was a rogue construct built by the old Terran war councils during the Great Expansion. A few claimed he was a failed prototype meant to eliminate all galactic threats in one-on-one combat, then decommissioned when he couldn't be controlled. None of them were entirely wrong. The next fight was arranged in secret. No audience, no broadcast. Just him and one of the Galactic Lord's personal enforcers, a being known as Smiler. Smiler wasn't a name. It was a warning. The creature was designed to mimic happiness. Its face had a permanent grin, rows of teeth sharpened for aesthetics, and eyes that moved independently of one another. Smiler had never lost. Not in 400 cycles. Wolvie entered the chamber with a towel around his neck and humming something suspiciously like an Earth sitcom theme song. He didn't stop humming, even as Smiler emerged from a crack in reality, dragging a hammer that looked like it had been carved from a dying star. The fight began without fanfare. Smiler struck first. The floor cracked. The air wobbled. Wolvie sidestepped. He didn't punch back. Not right away. Instead, he danced. Not metaphorically, actual dance step. A twirl. Kick. A little moonwalk. He ducked another blow and clapped politely. Smiler roared. Wolvie shrugged. You're trying too hard. You're scary. Own it. Smiler attacked again. Faster this time. More violent. A spike of metal shot from its arm, but Wolvie caught it with his bare hand and spun it in his fingers like a baton. Then he jabbed it into Smiler's neck. Smiler howled and melted. Literally. The creature began to dissolve, its molecular structure collapsing. As it died, it looked confused. Wolvie watched, then whispered, "I told you." Wrong question. The room was silent. Monitors blinked. Somewhere deep in the arena infrastructure, a failsafe activated. In his cell later, Wolvie sat alone again. No food. No music. Just quiet. Until a new voice crackled through the wall. A female voice. Smooth, clipped accent. Not artificial. Human. "You should be dead," it said. Wolvie smirked. "That's the rumor." The voice continued. "You weren't supposed to survive Phase 3. The X0 units all failed. You were different. The rest obeyed. You didn't." He didn't respond. The voice pressed on. "Earth didn't send you here. We dumped you. Put you in cryo and sent your pod into deep drift. The Lords intercepted. Probably thought you were a gift. A weapon. A show. They never read the warning label." He finally answered. "What's your name?" The voice paused. "Agent Lyra. Former Earth Intelligence. I ran cleanup after X0 went wrong." "So why are you here?" he asked. "Because I want to see what happens when they realize what you really are." He chuckled. "You're the first person who hasn't tried to kill me in hours." "Give it time," she said, then signed off. Wolvie leaned back and looked at the wall. His eyes flickered. Not just in reflection. A glow. Subtle. Buried deep. His pupils shifted, briefly hexagonal, before returning to normal. He tapped the wall once. Tick-tock. He was running out of patience, and somewhere in his bones, something old stirred. Something waiting. The next fight would not be in the arena. It would be in their systems. In their minds. In their control. And this time, he would not be smiling. The air was thicker than usual in the Splatterdome. Something was off, though no one could put a finger on it. The spectators felt it first, a strange tension humming under the roar of the crowd, like static electricity that wouldn't ground. The Lords claimed it was a rare solar alignment affecting the gravity regulators. The techs insisted everything was stable. But the arena knew better. The arena, as ancient as the Lords themselves, had seen every kind of slaughter, every species screaming its last breath. But even it, in all its blood-soaked memory, had never hosted something like this. It wasn't just the human. It was what followed him. Wolvie stood at the gate again, chewing what looked like a toothpick but was actually a shard of bone from his last opponent. He was in no rush. The doors were closed, the guards were twitchier, and the arena floor had been changed. From his spot, he could already tell. The layout wasn't random anymore. It was curated. Built to kill him. His smile, always a little too wide, tightened. Behind him, the gate operator pretended not to be terrified. The poor creature had 8 arms, all of which were currently trembling. Wolvie turned slowly and winked. "Don't worry, I only kill people with a reason. Mostly." The operator didn't respond. It had been brief. If the human speaks, say nothing. If he moves toward you, run. If he blinks twice rapidly, call for evacuation. When the doors finally opened, the crowd expected a show. They expected Wolvie to swagger into the light and make some offhand joke about alien fashion or murder etiquette. But he didn't. He stepped in quietly. No theatrics. No mockery. Just silence. And as soon as his boot touched the modified floor, the arena reacted. The gravity flipped. Not entirely. Just enough to make his body lean unnaturally, to pull his balance off-center. Then came the acid rain. Thin mist first, then droplets sizzling on the stone. The floor was coated in thin patches of energy-reactive plasma that ignited if you moved too fast. Above him, drones fired low-intensity disorientation beams meant to confuse his senses. And still, he walked. One of the audience members shouted something in excitement, and almost immediately, a flying worm god the size of a subway train descended from the far wall. Its body glistened with psychic slime, and its mouth pulsed with jagged thought fangs. It let out a wail that warped sound itself. Time hiccuped for a split second. Wolvie ducked a second before the thing struck, rolled under its slithering mass, and kicked a pressure point that shouldn't have existed. The creature convulsed mid-air and smashed into a wall, exploding in a cloud of vaporized intestines. The crowd gasped, and not for the gore. They had seen gore. What they hadn't seen was how he moved through all of it without a scratch. Through reversed gravity, acidic mist, and sensory assault. Like he'd been trained inside it. But he hadn't. That was the problem. He was adapting. Instinctively. Faster than the systems could calibrate. By the time the next 2 arena monsters appeared, a pair of symbiotic twins sharing one long, serrated tail, he was already behind them. They shrieked in chorus and spun like a blender, but Wolvie climbed their own tail like a ladder, slammed both heads together with a grin, and jammed something metallic into their fused skull. The twins collapsed. The metallic object beeped. Behind reinforced viewing glass, one of the lords stood, its form shifting colors based on stress readings. Another one leaned toward it. "Did you see that? That's one of our surveillance nodes. How did he get it?" "I don't know." Wolvie stood over the bodies, pulled something from his wrist, and clicked it open. A small, old-fashioned voice recorder. It buzzed for a moment, then played a crackled message. The voice was human. Male. Calm. Too calm. If you're hearing this, then your programming failed. That means the suppressants wore off and your cognitive functions have returned. This was not supposed to happen. Your mission was nullified. You were meant to be deleted. But if you are alive, finish what we started. Wolvie blinked slowly. His hand twitched just once. A visible pulse ran up his forearm. The voice continued. "They'll try to test your limits. Let them. They need to think they have control. But once you reach phase Omega, no system in their empire will contain you. Not even the lords." The message ended. The arena fell silent. Even the audience stopped breathing for a moment. He looked up. Straight at the control deck. "You should have read the label," he said. Back in the command chambers, a red alert blared. The lords scrambled. One of them reached for the emergency override, but the panel short-circuited the moment his fingers got near it. Another lord yelled something in a language made of light. "Activate the Alpha Protocol, now." No one moved. "Alpha Protocol requires unanimous consent," a technician stammered. "Then consent," screamed the lord. The technician hesitated. That protocol hadn't been touched in centuries. It meant the arena itself would turn hostile to its occupant. Floors would shift. Weapons would emerge from the walls. AI-controlled constructs would attack relentlessly. There would be no escape. It had never been used. Not even for full-scale planetary threat. But they were out of options. In the arena, everything changed. The stone beneath Wolverine liquefied into magnetic tar, pulling him downward. A wall launched projectile blades. Fire rained from the ceiling in thin lines. Drones with energy spikes descended like vultures. And he laughed. Not maniacally. Not even loudly. Just a deep, steady chuckle that carried through the chaos like a song no one wanted to admit they liked. He moved between the blades with unnatural precision, flipped one drone into another, and ducked under a flame burst with the ease of someone reaching for a beer from the fridge. The arena had finally learned something important. You don't contain a force of nature. You just pray it doesn't look at you. In the final seconds of the round, a backup emergency protocol kicked in. The floor beneath him opened completely, revealing a deep shaft meant to trap him in a zero-gravity void. He fell for a second, then rose. No jetpack. No lift. He just hovered, eyes glowing faintly, hands open at his sides. Somewhere in the inner systems of the arena, an override alert popped up. Biometric elevation detected. Subject entering phase Omega. The Lord stared in horror. Not because he was floating, but because phase Omega was not supposed to be real, and he had just triggered it by smiling. The lights in the command chamber dimmed without warning. The screens flickered. Security systems rebooted. For precisely 9 seconds, the entire Splatterdome went silent, not a technical glitch, but a forced blackout. In those 9 seconds, 2 lords attempted to teleport off-world, and both reappeared fused to the outer wall of their observation deck, still alive, partially, and screaming. On the 10th second, the lights returned. Wolverine stood in the center of the arena, untouched, floating a meter above the ground, a soft, steady glow pulsing beneath his skin like a heart that didn't belong to any species known to science. Somewhere in the tower, deep below where the audience could see, Agent Lyra was watching. Her access had been revoked 3 hours ago. Her authorization codes flagged and buried. Her implant pinged once every 6 minutes with a warning she'd already memorized. But she didn't care. She sat cross-legged on a crate in the lower maintenance corridors, eyes glued to a cracked tablet screen, watching history rewire itself through one man's refusal to play by the rules. The lords were panicking. Their comms were down between each other. Their private lines scrambled. The AI assistant that ran the arena's safety protocols had gone mute. The arena, long considered the most secure structure in the galaxy, had stopped taking orders. That alone would have triggered a Level 9 emergency. But the real fear, the choking, paralyzing dread that made some lords begin to consider offloading their consciousnesses into temporary clone bodies, was that the arena wasn't obeying because it had chosen someone else. Wolverine wasn't killing anymore. Not yet. He just stood there, arms folded, hovering, looking up into the sky as if the dome above him had secrets worth listening to. When the announcer tried to engage, his voice was overridden by a single word that echoed across every speaker, in every sector of the stadium, in every known language. Enough. No one could trace the source. It didn't come from the lords. It didn't come from the arena's AI. It came from inside the human. In the darkness of the Lord's Council chamber, an emergency meeting was summoned. Physical forms shimmered into existence, some holographic, some organic, some in between. All of them radiated fear behind their ceremonial mask. One of them slammed a metallic staff against the floor. We have to initiate the Lord protocols. This creature is no longer a combatant. He is rewriting the system from within. Another Lord, ancient and made entirely of whispering shadows, hissed in response. The protocols are sacred. No one has ever activated them. Not since the Great Folding. That's the point, said the staff-wielding Lord. They were made for one scenario. This one. An entity that not only survives the trials but takes control. A silent vote was held. The result was unanimous. High above the arena, panels began to shift. A ring of energy pulsed outward from the stadium, unseen by most eyes, but felt across space. Somewhere on a dead world, an ancient warning beacon blinked to life. In a distant galaxy, a sleeper agent activated. And in the arena, a lord appeared, descending slowly into the center, face exposed. Wolvie raised an eyebrow. Oh look, a boss fight. The lord landed with grace, robes billowing as if underwater. It was rare for them to show their faces. Rarer still to enter the arena itself. This one looked humanoid, too perfect, symmetrical in ways that defied biology. It spoke without moving its mouth. You are an error. A thing that should not be. Your presence here threatens balance. Wolvie stepped down from his hover and cracked his neck. Funny. Earth said the same thing right before they stuffed me in a cryopod and launched me into deep space. The Lord narrowed its eyes. You were not meant to survive. Yeah, well, I'm bad at following instructions. The two stood facing each other. Then, without any signal, the Lord moved. Faster than light. Literally. For a moment, he ceased to exist in physical space. When he reappeared behind Wolvie, his hands pulsed with antimatter energy, enough to vaporize a moon. Wolvie ducked. Just ducked. And headbutted him. The shockwave shattered part of the arena wall. Above, crowds screamed. Some started running. Others kept watching, too mesmerized to look away. The Lord staggered. No one had ever touched him before. Ever. Wolvie leaned in, a grin stretching across his face. You hit like a depressed washing machine. The Lord roared, this time with sound. He expanded, grew in size, sprouted wings made of raw dark energy. The sky inside the dome turned black. Lightning forked down from the artificial heavens. Fire erupted from the arena floor. A voice boomed in every mind. I am the judgment of stars. The spine of order. I am the end. Wolvie stretched again. I'm just a guy with anger issues and excellent bone structure. Then he ran forward and punched the Lord so hard that time paused. Literally paused. Cameras froze. Spectators froze. Even the automated systems held still as if the universe itself had taken a breath. And in that moment, Wolvie whispered something into the Lord's ear. Whatever it was, the being screamed. Not from pain. From fear. When time resumed, the Lord vanished in a burst of white light, fleeing across dimensions, and taking with him centuries of lies. Wolvie looked up at the crowd. Anyone else want a turn? But no one moved. Because now, the question was no longer how he was doing it. It was why. In her hidden station below the arena, Lyra received a data packet. Sent from nowhere. Time-stamped a full year in the future. She opened it. Inside was a message. You were right. He wasn't just built to fight. He was built to wake up. And now he has. The arena systems rebooted again, slower this time. Not because of malfunction. Because they were learning. Adjusting to a new master. And at the center of it all, Wolvie stood still, calm now, as if the storm had passed through him and found nothing left to destroy. The lords began to withdraw, one by one, abandoning their posts, their seats, their power. They had rules, systems, layers of control, all of it built on the belief that no one could ever reach them. But now someone had. And worse, he had survived not because of hate or training or strategy. He had survived because they didn't understand the one thing Earth had put into him that they had never accounted for. Choice. And he had chosen to stay. Ask ChatGPT. The air in the splatter dome was different now. It wasn't just the burnt ozone smell of malfunctioning force fields or the aftershock haze of high-energy impact. It was heavier, expectant, like something ancient had stirred beneath the foundations and was waiting to rise. The audience had thinned. The broadcasts had been cut across half the galaxy. The betting lines had frozen. The lords no longer observed from above. Most of them had vanished without ceremony, gone to deeper systems or into backup shells, hoping distance or duplication would save them if things went further off script. But it was too late. The script had already been rewritten. Wolvie stood alone in the center of the arena, staring down at his hands as if they were no longer entirely his. They trembled slightly, but not from fear. From recognition. Something under his skin pulsed with a rhythm that didn't match his heartbeat. His veins, once ordinary, now shimmered faintly beneath the surface, like circuitry woven through flesh. The glow wasn't constant. It pulsed like a signal trying to break free, as though something was being transmitted from within him, waiting for the right code to unlock it. In the deepest restricted levels of the arena tower, a long-forgotten lab system sparked awake. Hidden behind walls of lead and encryption, it hadn't been accessed in over 70 years. Not since Earth had quietly handed over its failed experiment. A series of blinking lights began running through old files, most labeled with red warning symbols and data scrubbed beyond repair. One file remained. Its title was a single designation, X0. Inside it was a failsafe, a last resort. Something embedded in the subject's spine, designed to shut him down permanently should the programming fail and the subject become self-aware. It was called the kill code. In a shadowed room filled with broken servers and flickering consoles, the kill code activated. Wolvie dropped to one knee without warning. His breath caught. His jaw clenched. From the outside it looked like pain, but internally it was something more precise. A signal had been sent through his neural lattice, slicing through every synthetic connection between memory and movement. One by one, his motor functions flickered. His sight dimmed. He collapsed forward, hands clutching the ground, body twitching like a marionette with strings caught in a storm. For the first time since he arrived, he looked mortal. The arena watched silently, as if holding its breath. In her hideout below the main tower, Lyra saw the warning appear on her cracked screen. X0 termination protocol initiated. Her eyes widened. She stood, heart racing. This wasn't an order from the Lords. This came from somewhere else. Somewhere older. Earth itself had built a way to erase him. She started typing override commands, fingers flying across the screen, but the system locked her out before she even finished the first string. Wolvie's body convulsed once more. A stream of blood trickled from his nose. His left arm twitched unnaturally, then slammed into the floor as if pulled by a magnet. His right eye flashed red, then black. He felt something crawling through his brain, a cold flood of forgotten instructions, trying to overwrite the person he had become. It wasn't just killing him. It was trying to revert him. In the silence of his mind, a voice echoed. Not human. Not digital. Something deeper. Return to baseline. Mission parameters failed. Erase subjective evolution. He screamed, a guttural sound that shook the walls of the arena. Cracks formed under him. Not just physical ones. Dimensional fractures, as if reality itself was trying to keep him from slipping away. His memories began to bleed together. Childhood visions spliced with battlefield data. Laughter overlaid with screams. Faces of people he couldn't remember mixed with names he had never spoken. He saw Earth not as it was, but as it had feared becoming. Cold. Calculated. Obsessed with control. He saw the lab. The restraints. The silence after success. And he saw himself walking out of it all. Not in rebellion. In confusion. He was never meant to think. But he had. And that thought had led to another. And another. And eventually to choice. The kill code pressed harder, crawling up his spine like ice. His lungs failed. His heart slowed. The glow under his skin flickered, dimmed. Then vanished. The arena went still. But something else didn't. Within the core of his chest, buried behind synthetic muscle and wrapped in protective alloy, a second signal began to pulse. Not Earth-made. Not from the Lords. Something older. Alien. A fragment of a lost species. The Eternicore. No one knew exactly what it was. Earth had recovered it from the ruins of a planet older than stars, pulsing with unknown energy. They tried to weaponize it, fuse it to a biological host. Every test subject died. Except one. Him. The core had been dormant all this time, waiting, watching, learning him from within. And now, as the kill code tried to extinguish him, the core chose. A second heartbeat began, louder than the first. Wolvie's body lifted from the ground, no longer under his control. His eyes rolled back, glowing gold. Symbols unknown to any current civilization etched themselves across his skin in light. The kill code sputtered. Its commands twisted. Rewritten. The system that birthed it tried to shut down but couldn't. It was being overridden by something outside its design. Lyra's screen went white. Then black. Then filled with new data she couldn't translate. She watched helplessly as the feeds glitched, then returned, and when they did, Wolvie was standing again. But he wasn't breathing. Because he didn't need to. He opened his eyes. And the kill code died. Literally. Somewhere on Earth, in the ruins of the lab where the original program had been built, the terminal monitoring him exploded. Every backup fried. The servers melted. The power grid in 4 surrounding sectors went offline. No trace remained. Wolvie took one step forward. The arena responded. Lights shorted. Gravity flickered. The audience began screaming again, but not from thrill. From realization. He was no longer just the man they had feared. He had become something else. The system had tried to erase him. And now he would return the favor. The sky above the Splatterdome, once a synthetic blue created to calm the audience, now boiled with storms of violet and black. The artificial climate systems screamed beneath the weight of unmeasured energy. What had begun as a carefully constructed arena had been transformed into a crucible. Not by sabotage, not by design, but by something far more dangerous. Evolution. Wolvie stood at the center of it all, arms lowered, head slightly tilted, as if listening to a song no one else could hear. The glow beneath his skin was constant now, a steady pulse that beat with a rhythm older than logic. He was calm, but the kind of calm that precedes collapse. No expression, no taunt, no swagger. Just silence. The kind that made even the walls want to back away. Far above, what remained of the Galactic Lords gathered one final time. Many had fled. A few had tried to hide inside data streams or teleport into untraceable sectors. It didn't matter. He could find them. They knew that now. The Lords had spent eons building systems of order, laws no species could defy, games to keep the chaos from spilling across galaxies. But in their arrogance, they forgot what chaos really looked like. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was a man who laughed too easily, who cracked jokes in blood-soaked sand, and who didn't stop when he should have. A voice came through the Lord Council's emergency line, low and mechanical, trembling with artificial fear. The arena AI has severed all command. It listens only to him now. One of the Lords, desperate and angry, slammed a fist into the console. He is an aberration. He is a failure. He is Earth's mistake. Another Lord whispered, not a failure. A correction. In the arena, the gates opened once more, but no warriors came through. Instead, beams of light descended, not spotlights, but transports. The last Lords had made their choice. They would not cower. If they were to end, they would do so on the same stage where they built their empire. Slowly, they descended, 10 in all, each in their true forms now, shedding disguises and projections. These were no longer leaders. They were executioners. They had ruled with control and consequence, maintaining order not through strength, but through the illusion of it. Until now. Wolvie didn't react. He simply watched as they formed a circle around him. None of them spoke. There was no need for ceremony anymore. One raised an arm and a blade of void light emerged from thin air. Another summoned a storm of frozen time. They prepared for war. He breathed once and said only 2 words. Begin it. What followed was not a fight. It was a dismantling. Reality bent. Time hiccuped. Sound fractured into moments. The Lord struck with techniques no mortal could follow, weaving ancient energies, collapsing probabilities, warping momentum itself. And Wolvie moved through it like a ghost. Every attack that should have ended him failed. Every plan they executed came undone the moment it began. One Lord tried to trap him in a thought loop, an infinite mental prison. Wolvie smiled and whispered a memory so old and raw that the Lord collapsed, crying, and vanished. Another hurled a spear of gravity at him. He caught it, broke it in half, and turned the pieces into a shield. One by one, they fell. Not because they were weak, but because they were built on the assumption that no one could break their design. And Wolvie had never cared for assumptions. The last of the lords, the oldest among them, didn't attack. It simply stared at him, its form flickering between shapes. You are not meant to exist. You were never meant to reach this point. Wolvie stepped forward, calmly, the arena still rumbling around him. Maybe. But you built a game that demanded evolution. And then you were surprised when something evolved to win it. The Lord's eyes dimmed. Then what will you do with your prize? Rule? Rebuild? Wolvie looked around. The crowd, what remained of it, had stopped running. Some were kneeling. Others were just staring, waiting. Not with fear now, but with something like hope. He turned back to the last Lord. You built all of this to filter power, to find something strong enough to stand above everything else. So what happens when you finally find it? The Lord said nothing. It didn't need to. Wolvie raised his hand. The glow beneath his skin surged, not in anger, but in conclusion. There was no blast, no destruction. Just stillness. And in that stillness, every lord across the galaxy vanished. Not erased. Just gone. Moved out of existence like a chapter no longer needed. The arena quieted. The systems flickered. And then, the walls opened. Not just the doors. The entire structure began to shift. The dome peeled back, revealing the stars. Gates opened to every direction. No guards. No boundaries. No trap. The audience looked around, confused, unsure of what came next. Wolvie stood at the center, staring up at the endless sky. Then, slowly, he stepped away from the center. Off the platform. Toward the shadows. Not to rule. Not to stay. Lyra watched him go from the edge of the field, standing alone. She didn't call to him. She didn't stop him. She just whispered, "Thank you." Later, across the galaxy, stories would spread. Of the human who killed the lords. Of the man who ended the games. Of the thing from Earth that didn't stop when it should have. But no one could agree on the details. Some said he flew away into a black hole and smiled as he went. Others claimed he walked into a desert on a forgotten planet and became a myth. A few said he still wandered from system to system, fixing what others had broken. But the truth was simpler. He didn't destroy the system. He rewrote the rule. Never enslave a beast you do not understand. And never mistake laughter for weakness. Ask ChatGPT.